The time for action has arrived. At last we shall cross swords with this arrogant fellow. I shall challenge him once more to a duel, cried Hare. You will do nothing of the sort, said Crawler firmly. Really, Hare, for a very wise fellow, you are behaving very rashly. I do not fancy the smell of fire and brimstone on your coat, dear boy. You are bound to get your ears singed. No, there's only one way to outwit the devil. How? Asked Hare and Lion together, and they fixed him with eyes in which there now lay a new respect. Crawler expanded visibly, but he remembered to keep his head and stuck to the point. Well? Go on, they beseeched him. This is my plan of campaign, and he murmured softly, a plan so dishonourable, so dastardly, so obnoxious, so alien to all feelings of etiquette and decency, that only old Lucifer could ever have been taken in by its sheer effrontery. First we will draw up an invitation to a great banquet, then decide the venue or place, then choose the guests, then compose a menu to tempt the greatest tempter of them all, said Crawler, rubbing his hands. A feverishness overtook them all, and their eyes sparkled with the visions they were about to conjure up. I can't wait to begin, cried Hare. The banquet on the largest table in the world, cried Lion, throwing open his paws as he gazed at the great mountain which lay before them, 4 square and majestic, with a magnificent snowy tablecloth just starting to fold over the edge. Whee! Yelled Crawler. Laden, but laden with goodies from end to end. All we need is a roll of best parchment, a scribe's pen and some colours, and gold paint to illuminate some of the letters. Hurry, they cried, and raced back along the breakwater, with the cormorants and seagulls flying beside them, wanting to know what all the fuss was about, while the wind caught at their clothing, pulling them back, wanting to know more of their fascinating plot. Late into the night, they burnt the midnight oil, sitting on Hare's carpet in his room, surrounded with the tools of their new trade. They found that Crawler had the steadiest hand, and left him to do the script, while Hare dictated the contents in order, and Lion used the tip of his tail as a paintbrush to add a touch of colour here and there to the elegant scroll. It read, To whom it may concern, a great banquet is to be held on Table Mountain, 31st of December. Guest of honour, the Right Dishonourable Lord Lucifer, P.O.D., H.F. and D. V.I.P. at 8 p.m. Other guests, the Right Worshipful, the Mayor of Cape Town, Councillor Spat, Councillor Kruger, Dr. Bernard Brown, Professor Parsons. Toast proposed by Lord Lucifer. Dress, white tie and tails. Carriages at 1 a.m. Now for the menu, said Hare, and they sat up all night composing the menu, while the roll of parchment grew longer and longer, until Crawler's arm ached. They covered most of the dishes they could think of, plus 1 or 2 only known to Hare's grandmother in Devon. Finished, sighed Crawler. Tomorrow Lion shall deliver it, and he rolled it up carefully, and fell into Hare's bed, snoring softly. Nobody heard the gong for breakfast the next morning. The curtains were drawn, and 3 figures on the bed never stirred so much as a whisker. Pa-pa, pa-pa. Lion sounded his bugle outside the dark closed door. It opened a crack, as he felt sure it would. Go away, boomed a harsh voice. No tradesmen, no pamphlets, no Boy Scouts or Brownies, no parsons, Catholics or Protestants, no Salvation Army, No Christmas collections, no—" "Invitation," said Lion helpfully. "Invitation," said the voice, then paused. "What was that?" Lion extended the truly magnificent parchment invitation, all correctly tied, with gay green tape, with a beautiful red sealing wax seal. "It's for you," he said. "Really?" said Lucifer, extending his hand and taking it from him. There was a long silence. Then the hand emerged again with a 10-cent piece. "For your trouble," he said. Lion turned and gamboled all the way down the mountain. His whiskers were intact. He hadn't been recognized, and he had been given a tip, which told him that a certain person was quite impressed with his invitation. Indeed he was. Oh, joy! Hare would be pleased. Crawler delighted, thought Lion. Lucifer scratched his long chin with bony fingers and sat down to work out his puzzle. He was very impressed with the scroll. He felt the crisp parchment with discerning fingertips and played with the green tapes, fingering the crested seal. On the crest was the head of a lion, rampant. On either side of it was an animal. It looked like a hare and some sort of amphibian. Strange. The scroll was soon open, and he noticed with satisfaction that the banquet was in his honor. Considering he was one of the oldest residents of this fair city, it was only right that he should receive some sort of recognition of his years of service. How often had he whistled up a black southeaster to fill their minds with dread and their gardens full of torn flowers to make them count the good days when they came with a greater sense of wonder. Oh, he had his uses. Life was not all a series of picnics. They must be made to suffer a little to give them a sense of proportion. Ah, and here was a menu. For his personal inspection. How very thoughtful. He was quite unused to good cooking, being inclined always to burn the toast and char the meat until it tasted of cinders. He could never spare the time to study Mother Beaton's cookery book, and he had sold his copy for a pair of new boots. Here was a poem. "Not only to our table, but to our hearts we welcome you." Very gratifying, since it was his sincere desire to reach the heart of every man anyway. "La truite fumée, au réfort," French, he cried, that civilized tongue, which he had quite forgotten since he was in France during that delightful revolution. The list was endless. Hare had concocted a menu of fish and game, poultry and meat, which would have dazzled good King Henry. He had them all fumée, consommée, pureed, fricasseed, and glacéed to such an extent that both glutton and gastronome would have been equally tongue-tied. All his puddings were flambéed, which he thought would please the old devil no end. "Wicked, ungracious me," growled Lucifer. "What a menu! Of course I shall attend. Held on top of the greatest table in the world, how could I refuse? Splendid, splendid. I will have to confer the Order of Doom on the bold organizer of such a feast. Upon my lie I will," he bellowed, and rescued the once large T-bone steak from the fire. "Ouch," he cried, for even a devil may occasionally burn his fingers when his mind is on other things. Lion met Crawler and Hare at the foot of Devil's Peak, on a small wooden footbridge over a tumbling mountain stream. "Did he take it?" asked Crawler anxiously. "Yes, he certainly did, and he gave me this for my pains." He showed them the coin, which wobbled on his paw and slipped through his claws, splash, into the water below. "Silly Billy," said Hare. "Now we shall have to climb down to find it." It lay in a pool under the bridge, and as they bent to retrieve it, they heard hurrying footsteps on the bridge above them. "It's him," breathed Lion. "He's in a great hurry. Shh! It's lucky I dropped the coin, or we would have been caught altogether. And our whole plan would have failed, sighed Hare. In the car park near the road, they saw a familiar figure. It was Brer Rabbit, walking anxiously around a large vehicle covered in dust. He was so engrossed with his inspection that he did not see the approach of Crawler, Lion, and Hare. He was muttering under his breath, "What a dirty, stuffy, rotten, uncaring old devil!" He kept running his finger over his van, for it was his van, and shaking off the dust with a look of disgust. "Hello," said the animals together. "Oh, hello there," said the rabbit, looking up. "Did you ever see such a mess? Am I upset? Do I look upset?" "I am upset," he said. "It was good of you to send me that telegram. I came as soon as I could. The lady at the hotel said I'd find you here, and here you are," and he wiped his hand before shaking theirs. They drove back to the hotel together with a spare set of keys, which Brer Rabbit produced from his pocket. "Apart from the dirt, she seems to be okay," he said. "How is Abba and the others at the Baobab?" asked Hare. "Abba sent you his greetings, and I am glad to say that after you left we had a shower of rain, so there should be enough water in the Baobab until the start of the rainy season. I am to continue my journey up the garden route until I get to Durban, where I will take a vessel home to New York. It has been quite an experience, and I shall remember this journey for many years to come. But I have come to the conclusion that home is where the heart lies, and I shall be glad to get back to the family and familiar surroundings." They said goodbye to the American rabbit after lunch and waved as the enormous vehicle, lovingly hosed down and sparkling in the sun, swept him from sight down the long tree-lined driveway. Lucifer found a telephone box and opened the directory. Rent a robe. Dresses and suits for hire. This must be it. He took out his bouncing checkbook and made his way swiftly to Loop Street. "White tie and tails," he barked at the young man behind the counter. "Important function, sir?" he inquired. "Banquet in my honor," said the devil, taking out a gold coin and twirling it on the counter. "It must be an important occasion, although I have not had any other requests for white tie and tails recently," said the young man, puzzled. "They must own their own. They move in high circles like myself," said Lucifer stiffly. "I suppose so," he answered, taking his measurements and wondering at the cut of his suit. He felt that he had seen this gentleman before somewhere. His face was familiar. He accepted the check and showed him to the changing room, where he put on the suit and vanished in a puff of smoke. When his sister had made him several cups of very sweet tea, he mentioned the banquet to her, and she knew nothing of it either, and she worked at the town hall.